set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels feared to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast, April 8th edition, and we have much transfer portal news and roster news to discuss. We knew it was coming. We knew the roster limits were being implemented, and we knew West Virginia was going to have to get rid of a lot of players, and that's definitely what's going to happen here. Moving forward, we're already up over 20 names. I think 23 names. We'll highlight those here in the stream. We'll take a look at the roster now as it stands currently, and I'll just continue to come back, give you guys probably, of course, I'm always usually doing a daily stream anyways, but this roster news is going to continue to come out over the next week or so, and so I'll continue to keep you guys up to date with who's on the roster, who's off the roster, who are retargeting in the portal, all that good stuff. I always keep you guys up to date on the roster and the transfer portal news, and I'll do that via live streams, and I'll try and do some pre-recorded videos as well as far as roster updates as that happens. This one will be a little bit of both. We'll talk the transfer news, and I'll show you guys the roster kind of as we go through the list of names. I'll remove them from our roster tracker here on the CRW, and we can kind of go through each position as we do that. So that's kind of the main crux of the stream here, is going to be discussing the roster overhaul that's underway for WVU, but then towards the tail end, we'll have some fun, talk about the spring showcase a little bit, show some clips that the university's put out. They did put out a great recap video by the WVU media team. I always like to share those here on the live stream, so we'll share one of those as well. And if you guys haven't had a chance yet, be sure to listen to our latest podcast episode we released late last night on any podcast platform you can listen in, or of course you can watch it here on the CRW YouTube channel. Stephen and I recapped a fun Saturday for us in Morgantown as we went up there for the spring showcase and watched WVU baseball as well. So be sure to check that out. And you guys that are watching live on Facebook or Twitch, to check that out, you'll have to come over to the CRW YouTube channel, subscribe here to watch the video version, or of course you can subscribe on any podcast platform you like as well. But appreciate you guys that are watching live on any of those platforms. Those of you that are here on YouTube, whether you're watching live or on the playback, help us out real quick. Just take a second, hit that thumbs up button, give the video a like. It helps us a ton with that YouTube algorithm. And if you subscribe to the channel, you'll know who's on the roster once the season comes around, because we're keeping you up to date on the WVU football roster and the WVU basketball roster as both of those develop. So with no further ado, we have a ton of developments on the WVU football roster, so let's talk about those. Let's pull up the list here of guys that transferred out as of yesterday. And, like I said, we knew this was coming, guys. This was going to be the way that it was with the new roster limits. Rich Rod's talked about it in pretty much every press conference he's had, how much he hates it because he's having to cut some good football players that he wouldn't like to cut. And we never will know if some of these guys were their own decision deciding to depart the program, or if it was a suggested decision by the coaching staff. But we know there's 23 names right here on this list, and there's going to be a lot more added. I think we're into the 30s by the time this is all said and done, because you got to get down under that limit, and West Virginia wants to add more players in this upcoming portal window as well. So let's start it off. Let's talk about the 23 names. I've got them sorted by position, and so let's talk first about LJ Turner and Trayvon Dunbar. Now let's pull up our roster tracker, and we'll go ahead and remove them off, and we can talk about the running back position here first. So LJ Turner, a senior that had just transferred in from Catawba College, Division II school there. Surprised that he didn't make the roster. It was one of the more surprising ones for me. I think that, I liked his film. I thought he had some good tape, but I think Dewar Hubbard really showed out a lot in this spring. He kind of cemented himself as that second running back to Jaheim White, and Ty Edwards, kind of your short yardage back as well, that I think is going to get a ton of playing time this year. And with Dewar Hubbard separating himself, that led to Trayvon Dunbar transferring out as well. So for now, the time being, with those running backs gone, the running back position looks like Ty Edwards, Jaheim White, Dewar Hubbard, Clay Ash, and Judah Price for the upcoming season, barring any other changes, which, of course, subject to change. We never know, if any more of these players are going to transfer out in the next week or so. We'll find out in short order, and we also, West Virginia may go out a running back in the portal. We'll see what happens there. There were no changes at QB, actually, so we can, keep this list the same for now, but I do expect there to be 2 or 3 guys off this list in the near future. I think your ones that are solidified to stay for sure: Jalen Henderson, Nico Marchiol, Max Brown, Scotty Fox. We'll see what's up with Khalil Wilkins, Abe Fenwick, and Scott Keene as we progress through the offseason here. But for now, quarterback remains untouched. There's the new look for the running backs now that we know Trayvon Dunbar and LJ Turner are transferring out. So there's the update on the running back side there as we move through these transfer updates. Let's go back to our list here. And we have 4 wide receivers that have moved off and are going to be moving on. Few surprises here from the receiver position. I think Brandon Raymond was a surprise. You guys know Dom Collins was a huge surprise for me, just because I thought that he was someone that would really help West Virginia down the line with his great speed. We know how Rich Rod values speed. I thought he would be a key cog maybe. Turns out, he's going to end up going somewhere else, but that's someone that I think is going to be very successful throughout his collegiate career, and maybe he'll follow a similar path through some others that, transfer to another school and then find their way back to WVU. I'd love to see that happen. A little bit of bias here as he's a Mercer County guy like myself, but nonetheless, Dom Collins, Brandon Raymond, TJ Johnson, and Andrew Ferris, a former walk-on, are the ones off the roster at receiver. So let's pull back up our roster tracker here and make those necessary changes to the receiver position here as we take off these names here. TJ Johnson, legacy player that is going to be transferring out. And then, of course, your 3 here, Ferris, Collins, and Raymond. And I think that one thing, I talked about this on our podcast we released last night. This shows that really, unfortunately, a lot of the players that you've seen in the past that you could take time to let develop through your program, and they really contribute in, year 3, year 4, year 5 in some cases, those are going to be going by the wayside now for, instead you're going to bring in a 1 or 2 year mercenary type guy instead of letting those guys develop through your program, because you don't really have the luxury of doing that with these new roster limits. And that's just another way that this hurts West Virginia and hurts some other developmental programs as well. So at receiver right now, with how things stand currently, this is how it's looking. As you can see, heavy senior and junior influence. 3 redshirt seniors, those being Jaden Bray, Preston Fox, Gerard Bowie, and then you have another senior in Man Singleton, redshirt junior in Jarrell Williams. Rodney Gallagher is a true junior. 2 redshirt sophomores, both being guys that just transferred in, Cam Vine and Cyrus Straw. And I think, these first round of, transfers out shows us that no one's safe. Doesn't matter if you're an early enrollee, if you're a guy that just transferred in. We saw, both of those, leave the roster as well, just as we just talked about. LJ Turner was someone that just transferred in the last portal window. Now he's transferring out again. We've seen, multiple true freshmen that enrolled early to go through spring practice are off the roster now as well. We'll talk about some of them coming up. We saw some talented redshirt freshmen there, Brandon Raymond and Dom Collins, that I thought would be really good guys for your program in the future, transferring out now. So that's where we're looking: quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. With the wide receivers remaining, West Virginia definitely will probably be adding at least another guy or 2 there. We do have Jeffrey Weimer coming in over the summer via JUCO. I think he'll be a contributor there at that position. From the looks of it, Jaden Bray and Cam Vaughn, kind of your top two on the outside right now. In your top slot man, Rodney Gallagher, Preston Fox will factor in there somewhere as well. And of course, they're going to add more bodies there. So that's the wide receiver position following the transfers out there, which there were multiple, a couple of surprises there for me. And then let's take a look here. I think next up we have tight end here, which a couple of these, right? Well, actually, we got offensive line and then tight end. But let's go tight end first, then we'll go to offensive line since I already teased it up. But Jackson Accardi is one of those true freshmen that enrolled early, was going to be a true freshman this season, already on the way out. And Johnny Pascuzzi, same goes for him, just transferred in from Iowa. So in both those cases, you see the thing I was talking about there. A true freshman early enrollee heading out, and a guy that just transferred in heading out. Johnny Pascuzzi actually left before the spring showcase. So let's take a look at the tight end position here as to where it stands currently once we take these guys off there. Which those two being true freshman Jackson Accardi, and then redshirt senior Iowa transfer Johnny Pascuzzi off the roster now as well. So at tight end, you're looking Greg Ginross, you're looking Jacob Barrick, who just transferred in from Jack State. Looks like he might be the first team guy right now as far as things are concerned. Noah Braham, redshirt sophomore legacy player. Jack Samarco, sophomore that played some last season. And then Colin McBee still remains on the roster now as well. So for now, 5 tight ends currently on the roster. Let's go offensive line here because actually so far only one change there, only one transfer out. That being Justin Terry, which is so funny because Justin Terry was in the portal. We were thin on offensive linemen. He withdraws from the portal, goes through spring practice, but then he's hitting the portal again. And I think, offensive line is obviously a position that we've talked about in the past. West Virginia will need to add some guys. They had some mistakes in the spring showcase, a lot of procedure penalties, which Rich Rod wasn't happy about. But Justin Terry transferring out, so let's update the offensive line here on our roster tracker as well now. Take a look at that. After we remove Justin Terry here, which let's get this all on one page. Let's do a quick adjustment there. We'll take Justin Terry out. And so still several offensive linemen, but I think your main contributors are probably, from Nick Cray up, the guys that are probably going to help you this season. Not to say that some of these guys down here can't, but I think there are more guys that maybe could help you in the future if they all remain on the roster. We'll see. I think they're not done, obviously, making roster changes, having guys transfer out. And, there are some more offensive linemen here that may be subject to transferring out in the future. And West Virginia is going to go out and pick up some more in the portal. But for now, we have Tykees Crawford, a redshirt senior. He was your, de facto starting right tackle in the spring game. Kimo Makanaeoli was your de facto starting right guard. He's another redshirt senior just transferred in. Walter Youngbear was your de facto starting left guard, another redshirt senior. Xavier Bosley, he was out for most of spring with injury, but I think he will contribute on this line, whether that's as a starter or kind of the swing man that can come in and play that we've seen the past couple of years. He's a redshirt junior. Landon Livingston, I think you can go ahead and pencil him in as the starter at center. Looks like he's got that job pretty well locked up to this point, barring any unforeseen surprises. He's a redshirt junior as well. And then Nick Cray, we were wondering if he would be tackle or guard, but this staff looks like he's going to play tackle, and they actually had him out there at left tackle. They're the redshirt sophomore. And then beyond those guys, you have Wyatt Minor, who just transferred in as a redshirt sophomore. Cooper Young, who returns as a redshirt sophomore. Robbie Martin, who just transferred in, redshirt freshman. Huntington native. I think he'll be your second-string center likely this upcoming season. Couple of early enrollees, Brandon Homedy and Gavin Crawford still on the roster. And then some former walk-ons, Raymond Kovaleski, Griffin Fogel, and Andreas Hunter, who are all redshirt freshmen. So there's the changes to the offensive line with Justin Terry heading out. And let me pull back up the transfer portal tracker momentarily. After I just accidentally closed the tab, I've got to pull it back up. Sorry about that. So let's go back here now. We've went all the way through the running backs, the wide receivers, offensive linemen, and tight end that transferring out. Now we have multiple defensive linemen. And I think here, maybe a couple of more surprises. One of them just being the fact that Amir Leonard Jean Charles was an early enrollee, a freshman. The fact that he's already transferring out was a bit of surprise. And I think Elijah Kinsler was a little bit of a surprise as well because he played a little bit sparingly last year. Then you have Jonah Alua, former walk-on, who's transferring out, and then Mekhi Byerson, a young guy in the program, transferring out. So let's take a look at the defensive line now and update it with this new information here. Let's see. So Jonah Alua on the way out. Amir Leonard Jean Charles on the way out. Mekhi Byerson, the redshirt freshman, on the way out. And then fellow redshirt freshman Elijah Kinsler on the way out as well. So defensive line, here's what you're left with. Jamori Robinson, one of the best pass rushers in the border. So super excited to see what he does. Eddie V, coming back from injury as a graduate student now. Hammond Russell, the redshirt senior. Asani Redwood is a redshirt junior. Corey McIntyre Jr., someone I have high hopes for if he can bounce back from that injury. Redshirt sophomore there. You have Nate Gabriel there as a sophomore. You have early enrollees Brandon Caesar and Wilnerson Telemake still on the roster. And then you have redshirt junior Jackson Beiser. You have new JUCO addition Adam Tomchek, who's a redshirt junior. And then redshirt freshman Quentin Goins on the defensive line. So that's what we're looking at still left on the D-line following some of those departures. Let's go back. Let's talk about some bandits because the bandit position now is looking a little bit thin after some of these guys are transferring out. But I do think we have a couple of standouts there, especially one that really, you saw him coming off the edge even in the spring showcase making plays, that being Braden Siders. But as far as who's on the way out there at that bandit position, you have Orion Fisher, Obina Onwuka, and Ramondo Johnson. And Obina Onwuka, kind of similar story to Justin Terry. Hit the portal, decided to withdraw, but then heading back out following the spring. And so the bandit position, pretty thin right now. So you got to think West Virginia is probably going to add some pass rushers here in this next transfer portal cycle as well. As we take a look here at the bandit position now, all three of these names on the way out. So right now you're left with Braden Siders and Curtis Jones Jr., who both performed well throughout the spring from what I've heard. And Braden Siders, you could see with your own eyes there in the spring showcase making plays coming off that edge. He's going to be a good pass rusher. I think you'll add Keenan Eck here if he's going to play the bandit. I believe he will. Another JUCO guy that will be added over the summer, and we'll see if they go out and add any more pass rushers via the portal because it seems like you need some guys there at the bandit spot now as you're left with Braden Siders and Curtis Jones there at the bandit position. Next up, linebacker, where I think there was only one transfer out there thus far, and that being a former walk-on in Aiden Fleming, who we can remove there from the linebacker position. So let's pull that roster back up and do just that and talk about our linebackers, where I think we actually have some good ones that will contribute for this upcoming season. So we'll take out Aiden Fleming. And so right now at the linebacker position, you have Chase Wilson and you have Reed Carrico, both redshirt seniors. I think they'll be your two starters, the guys that play the most, kind of the leaders of this defense, so to speak. Reed Carrico being a second year here at WVU. Chase Wilson just transferring in from Colorado State, but he was a tackling machine. You guys saw share some of his plays in previous streams. He's a really, fun player. Caden Beiser, another redshirt senior, will be there. Ben Cutter's back as a junior. Couple of redshirt freshmen, one returning in Ricky Williams, and one that you just had transfer in from North Carolina in Ashton Woods. And then early enrollee Michael Hasty remains on the roster there as a true freshman as well. So there's your linebackers. Let's go defensive backs now. Talk about this. Going to be several changes here to the defensive backs as Aiden Nelson from the safety spot has moved on. Chris Henry has moved on. Sammy Etienne has moved on. And another early enrollee, Zah Jackson, on the way out now as well. So you see, was that 3, I think at least, early enrollees that are transferring out now. So there's the defensive backs. Of course, this spans across corner and safety, so we'll take a look at both those positions really quickly here on our roster tracker. So cornerback, we have Zah Jackson heading out from the corners. And then at the safety spot, we have Sammy Etienne heading out. and Aiden Nelson heading out, which, of course, he was a contributor to both WVU football and WVU basketball. We'll see what that means for him moving forward. I'm guessing he's probably going to transfer to another school, so I guess we won't see him on either. But let's go through the corners, nickels, and safeties now that we know some of the adjustments there, which really none too prevalent yet at nickel yet. But let's go through cornerback first. Michael Coach Jr., Devontae Golden Nelson, both those guys sat out the spring showcase. Several starters on defense, or guys that are presumed to maybe be starters, did that. Those are both going to be contributors, 2 seniors there. Then you have 3 more. Look at the heavy senior-laden influence here at the defensive back position. Derek Carter, who just transferred in from Jack State. Jacoby Spells, now a senior. And Jason Chambers, the senior that transferred in from Appalachian State. Did have an interception in the spring showcase, actually. So keep an eye on all of those guys. I think those 5 guys will factor heavily in those 2 cornerback spots. I expect Michael Coach Jr. to start. Who starts on the other side of him remains to be seen. Will it be Golden Nelson? Will it be Carter? Will it be Spells? Will it be Chambers? I think that'll be a nice position battle to watch. But then beyond them, we have some young guys. Sophomore Keyshawn Robinson, redshirt freshman Keon Washington, redshirt sophomore Jordan Jackson, and a couple of former walk-ons, and redshirt sophomore Jaden Bell and redshirt freshman Mikey Preston. The nickel position, these are the guys that are listed as a nickel on the roster, but I also think William Davis has a chance to play some nickel, who's currently listed at safety. But as far as guys listed as nickel on the roster right now, Jordy Scruggs, a redshirt senior, Fred Perry, the hard hitter that transferred in from Jack State, will be a senior there. You have Zay Jennings returning as a sophomore, and redshirt freshman Nasai Bell still on the roster now as well. Safety position. Did have a couple of changes here with ETN heading out, Aiden Nelson heading out, and you kind of expected that when you added so many safeties in the first portal window. KK Tarnu returns as a junior. You have Jordy Walker, who's a redshirt senior. Justin Harrington will be a redshirt senior. The aforementioned William Davis will be a redshirt senior. I think he could play safety or nickel. Israel Boyce is back as a sophomore. Goes by Jacob, I believe. Jason Cross, a redshirt freshman. Chris Henry is also off the roster. Forgot to remove him, which at least that clears up some confusion for people thinking that's Chris Henry's son. I kid, of course. Wish him the best moving forward. But then you still have true freshman early enrollee Chris Filippo, who remains on the roster there as well. So there's the cut downs at safety. Now, we do have some special teams changes to talk about here. We'll address these all at once, and this will wrap up the 23 names that have transferred out. I'll go back over them for you guys here momentarily as a whole, but wanted to go kind of position by position through this thing. The specialists that are transferring out is kicker Casey Stanley and punter Luke Savino. So specialist-wise, this is what you'll have remaining on the roster. We'll take those guys off and talk here about the specialists. Casey Stanley out of the mix at kicker. And then, of course, Ollie Straw, we knew was going to be the main punter, but, the only other backup he had there, Luke Savino, on the way out. So at kicker, I guess you could kind of expect this if you watched the spring showcase, because these were the 3 guys that participated in that kicking competition, and all 3 seemed to have pretty good legs. They were hitting, I think, up to, 55 yards away. All 3 pretty strong leg guys, which we expected for Ethan Head as he transferred in from Tulane to be the kickoff specialist. I don't know if he'll handle place kicking duties. I really like the RJ Koshan's leg. We'll see if West Virginia goes and targets anyone else to just do specific place kicking. But I think all 3 of these guys have good legs, those being Ethan Head, the sophomore, RJ Koshan, a redshirt junior, and Nate Flower, a redshirt sophomore. At punter, of course, Ollie Straw, the senior, will return to handle those duties. And still 2 long snappers on the roster, and McGuire Moss, a redshirt junior, and Caden Seller, a redshirt freshman. So there's the updated roster now with the changes. I'll try and put out a pre-recorded roster update on the channel as a pre-recorded video and just kind of go over this roster now with those changes being made. But just to recap, let's run through all 23 names here in one go so you guys know who all has transferred out thus far. Subject to change, may change by the time we get done with this live stream, but that's why I'm going to continue to bring you guys these streams to update these transfers as they transfer out and update the West Virginia football roster. But for now, here's the 23 names that have transferred out thus far, or set to transfer out. Running backs L.J. Turner and Trayvon Dunbar. From the wide receiver position, Andrew Ferris, Dom Collins, Brandon Raymond, T.J. Johnson. Offensive lineman Justin Terry. Tight ends Jackson Accardi and Johnny Pascuzzi. Defensive lineman Jonah Alua. Defensive lineman Amir Leonard Jean Charles. Also on the defensive line, Elijah Kinsler and Makai Byerson. 3 bandits on the way out, Orion Fisher, Obina Onwuka, and Ramondo Johnson. 1 linebacker in Aiden Fleming. And then you have 4 DBs here: Sammy Etienne, Chris Henry, Aiden Tagaloa Nelson, and Zah Jackson. And then a kicker, Casey Stanley, and a punter, Luke Savino. So those are the 3 transfers out thus far. And that kind of wraps us up on the roster update portion, the transfer portal update portion. But funny enough, we do know that, of course, the meetings were going on there about the house settlement. And it's just, so classic NCAA to be implementing these roster rules without really, having kind of the fine print there, having, the ins and outs, how this is going to function. And it's so funny because Ross Dellinger was tweeting as this was ongoing yesterday. And here's something that, Rich Rod had talked about throughout the spring practice that would have been great to be able to grandfather in the guys that are already on the roster while you implement these new limits. Rich Rod said that would be such a great practice. And now, of course, the NCAA wants to come out and say, hey, maybe that's something we can consider. A little bit late for that, I think, at this point. But we'll see if they do end up implementing this, if that allows some of these guys that are in the portal to maybe return if they'd like. I don't know if that'll be the case, but it's something that's up for debate. Ross Dellinger tweeting out yesterday they were breaking for 10 minutes for the final hour, and Wilkin was making 2 suggested changes to the settlement. Phasing in roster limits by grandfathering in current athletes on rosters. Wow, what a concept. Why would you guys not have this, settled in long before, before these were about to go into effect here in April? And then excluding future athletes from the settlement by creating a new class each year. 2 good proposals. Unsure on, what the final result's going to be from those. The last update we had from Ross Dellinger on this was the final house settlement hearing is over, and he gave you the gist here. Judge Wilkin gave indication that she'd approve the NCAA's house settlement if changes are made to roster limits, possibly phasing them in, which that's awesome. Rich Rod talked about that through the spring as well. It'd be smarter to go, to 120, then down to 115, then eventually down to 105 if that's your goal, and the inclusion of future athletes in the class, which would tweak the language. So even now, we don't know exactly how these roster limits are going to work, if you're going to be able to grandfather guys in, if they're going to have a phasing segment. We're still kind of waiting, but this house settlement should be approved, pending these changes, and then we'll know for sure here in the near future what happens moving forward. But that's just something to keep an eye on with this and see how that ends up being implemented with these upcoming roster limits from the NCAA. But having said that, appreciate everyone that's in here live, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. Those of you that are on Facebook or Twitch, encourage you to come over to the Country Roads Webcast YouTube channel and subscribe so you can get access to the pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes. In addition to these live streams, those of you that are here on YouTube, whether watching live or on the playback, hit the thumbs up button, help us out with the algorithm, and be sure you're subscribed to the channel as well. If you didn't get a chance to throw your thoughts here in the live chat, throw them in the comments section. I always appreciate those interactions. We try and grow the CRW community throughout Mountaineer Nation. But having said that, let me get to some of the comments from the people that are in here live. Hey, Shane Statmiller, good to see you in here, friend. Appreciate the kind words, man. Trey said they was going to cut up to 40 total, but to be honest, I don't know who else they could cut. Hell, they even cut LJ Turner. I think just looking at the roster, I could see probably at least 10 more names, and that would put it up to 33. Because, just being honest, I think, that these guys that are former walk-ons at multiple of these positions, I'm looking through it now, and just on quick glance, I see about 8 names on offense. I see about the same, at least on defense. So that's another 16. So that would put you up to 39. So I think right around 40 is probably pretty accurate for how many is going to be transferring out once the dust settles there, Trey. That'd be probably pretty close to accurate. Channel Trey says the Lady Mountaineers got a transfer commit from Texas Tech. I saw that. What was the young woman's name? If I could pull that up really quickly, I'll share it on the screen. Because, shout out to the West Virginia women's team, rebuilding as well under Coach Mark Kellogg, trying to do a good job in the portal also. Let's see here if I can pull this up really quickly. Logan Johnson transferring from Texas Tech to WVU to join the women's team. Appreciate that, Trey. As you can see, there's the graphic from On3. She commits to WVU, a combo guard. So WVU women's team filling their roster as well. Good thing to update there, Trey. Appreciate you mentioning that, bringing it to light. Christopher West says Stanford wide receiver supposed to visit. Yeah, we reported on that last week. few days ago now, a few streams back. You can probably find that on the channel if you haven't seen it yet. Mudia Rubin is his name. He's going to visit. Cam Rice, a defensive lineman from Ohio, is going to visit. I believe there's a scholarship offer out to a D2 wide receiver as well. So we'll continue to update those as more visits are scheduled, more transfers are targeted there. Appreciate that. Christopher West. Trey, he's already listened to the new episode of the podcast because he says he agrees with Steven. The NCAA needs abolish. The president is an idiot and ruin this good sport we have. NIL is destroying it as well. It went too far. Yeah, hey, that's a bad thing about, Pandora. It only comes out of the box. It doesn't come back in once you open up Pandora's box, right? So unfortunately, there's no going back now, but they do need to regulate this in some way moving forward. The NCAA doesn't make the best decisions, as you can see with them stumbling and bumbling, trying to implement these roster limits just being one example. The way they did NIL being another example to where, it's became pay for play without them wanting it to be. Now they're trying to do the House settlement to correct that, and they always seem to be, working backwards, right? They always make a dumb decision, and then they got to make 5 more to try and fix the dumb decision they made, and then that, dominoes off into more stupid decisions. So they're always trying to clean up their mess, and it just seems like they're never going to get to. So eventually I think it is probably going to a way where the NCAA is kind of done away with in college football, and the major conferences kind of form their own thing and govern themselves, have a commissioner. That would be the way to go. We'll see if and when it ever gets to that point, though, Trey, for sure. Dom would be good at Marshall or ODU this year, would get playing time and develop and maybe come back. Yeah, 100%. He's got schools reaching out to him already. You guys know his brother was a friend of the show. I was in contact with him. Obviously, pretty upset with the way things went down. Can't blame him for feeling that way. Thought Dom deserved a spot on the roster myself. But nonetheless, plenty of schools have reached out to Dom. He's going to find a really good landing spot. And I think, the main thing for him is to go somewhere where you get on the field, because once you get on the field, then you're going to be undeniable once he puts up good numbers, because he will once he gets on the field. And that's when, WVU may come calling again, or even bigger programs may come calling again, and he's going to have a really solid career. But yeah, definitely not a bad suggestion there, Trey, as well. Trey says he thinks the final roster limit should be 120. Would make more sense, at least to do it that way initially, as Rich Rod's talked about, kind of working to the 105 if you want to get there. Start with 120, then go to 115, then go down to 110, and gradually get to 105 so, that you can kind of work and anticipate that with the way you're developing your roster for sure. Ranger Buck with another good comment. Appreciate you. Don't think I've seen you in here, man. Hope you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all this news. He says they should have a practice squad like the pros for players that need more development. 100% agree. And that, goes hand in hand with what Rich Rod's talked about throughout the spring as well. We're going towards a pro model with the way they're doing college now. Why not take notes from the pros? Whether that be having a practice squad to where, you have guys that are kind of your scout team guys. You could continue to develop them. Maybe they don't count towards your 105 roster limit. And, it's kind of like an inactive roster, like the practice squads in the NFL. Also, scrimmaging against other teams. That'd be another great thing. The NCAA, of course, denied that. Another dumb decision by them. I think all of those things need to be implemented. If we're going to a pro model, let's go all the way with it so we can have all the benefits and not try and, copycat a pro model, but then have all these things that are hindering us the way that they are currently. So I think a practice squad would be an awesome decision, Ranger Buck, and that's a great suggestion there. So that's what I had as far as transfer updates, roster updates I wanted to get to here. Keep you guys up to date on that as it continues to develop. We'll have plenty more transfers out in the near future. Some notes from Rich Rod's post-spring press conference from the spring showcase. Then we'll share some clips, and then we'll wrap this one up before too much longer. But if you guys got any other questions or comments, throw them in the chat there. I'll touch up on those one more time. But Rich Rod stated he thought it was a solid spring. The guys got better. He was disappointed with the penalties in the scrimmage. I definitely saw that. He said they didn't have a ton of those, throughout spring. Was surprised to see them pop up in the scrimmage, but I think a lot of that is probably due to them trying to adjust to the tempo. And, it bothered them so much that at one point he eventually kind of slowed it down, and they didn't really run the up tempo as much as we're going to see it once we get to the fall. You could see Rich Rod really getting after the guys after some of those false start penalties, multiple of them in a row at one point, and Rich Rod was definitely letting him have it for it. Good to see that, back in action as well, kind of trying to correct those mistakes right on the spot there, as we've talked about throughout the spring. He talked about hard decisions to make now. I think just evidenced by the players that have already transferred out. Definitely some hard decisions because you're losing some solid players there, I think. Just casualty of these upcoming roster limits, which we hate to see. He also said the tempo is a work in progress. I think we noticed that with the procedure penalties and with them, kind of slowing it down a little bit at times, which won't be the case once fall rolls around. They ran 88 plays in the scrimmage, which is a little bit more than what he expected. He was guessing somewhere between 70 and 80. Kept it vanilla, which I can definitely agree with. I think by my count, I only saw 4 or 5 different offensive plays that they ran and just kind of repeated those throughout. Kickers responded well when put under pressure, he stated. Definitely agree with that. Touched on that a little bit earlier. I thought all 3 of them showed good legs in that kicking competition. They wanted to do some 2-minute drill stuff towards the end, but didn't get a chance to do it because they ran, so many plays. They kind of ran out of time, which that would have been fun to watch because then when you got to see the tempo a little bit more in action. He loved the way the QBs ran the ball, but they need to get rid of the ball quicker, and I think that was apparent as well. All the quarterbacks that we have look like they can run, as far as the rushing side of the offense, but the passing decisions need to get a little bit more crisper, a little bit more quick. I think Nico showed the best ability there as far as the passing game is concerned in the brief series or so that he played. Had that deep pass to Cam Vaughn on the second play of the scrimmage that looked really good and made another really nice throw in a tight window on the sideline to Jarrell Williams. So he looked really good there throwing the football. And Jalen Henderson, you guys know I'm a fan of him. He is super quick. Max Brown had some good runs. You can see the potential Scotty Fox has, why he's been getting rave reviews throughout the spring. So I think, everything they talked about at the quarterback position was not coach speak. You could see it, throughout the game. Definitely need to add some offensive linemen, to add some receivers, but the running game looks solid on the offense. I think the defense was really hard to judge because Zach Alley, he's got a ton of blitzes he's going to have coming in the fall. Didn't really get to run a lot of those. They also sat out a bunch of guys that I think will be first or second team guys. But from what you did see, the couple of times they did bring the blitz, Braden Siders got in there and made some plays. So you like that aspect of it. The defense was just a little bit harder to judge there as far as some takeaways there and some notes from Rich Rod's post-spring press conference there. Gail Nichols says players cannot be cut, must leave on their own. Yeah, they can't call them cuts, but, let's be honest, that's what it is. They can't call it that specifically, but they can say, hey, you can stay here if you want, but you're going to be 4th or 5th spot on the depth chart. If you would like to go somewhere else, you may want to transfer out. So, yes, technically they're all player decisions, but some of them are guided by the staff, let's be honest. That's why on the video game it's called encourage transfers, because that's kind of what happens now in today's day and age. With these roster limits, it has to happen. They don't really have a choice. So that's the way it works, for sure. They have to honor their scholarship if they choose to stay, but who's going to choose to stay if they tell you you're going to be the 5th on the depth chart and you can hit the portal and go somewhere else and get a new spot? That's why there's already been 23 guys that have decided to do just that, and there's going to be probably 15 more at least. It's not necessarily cuts. This isn't the NFL, but that's what they have to do. They're cutting down the roster. So we can call it here as fans, as someone not associated with the program, we can call it like it is. But, if you want to get technical, they're not getting cut, as Gail says there. But, that's another thing that goes against what the NCAA is doing with these roster limits. We've lamented it all spring in every show that we've done here, and yet again, have to lament it even more after we lose some really good players in this first round, but we'll continue to keep you guys up to date as it moves forward here. Last thing, let's share some clips from the spring game, guys, here to wrap up the stream. Great job by the WVU media team. So first, let's share the little bit of fun that was had with the 2-point play segment where Rich Rod went up to the stands and let the fans call some of the plays. We'll share that one, and then we'll share the awesome recap video, which we know the media team puts those out after wins, and we always share those here on our live streams following those wins to, recognize their work, and we'll do that again here for the spring game. But first, let's show Rich Rod here helping with play calling. Or getting some fans to call plays, I guess.
You're picking the play.
Number 4.
Go on, play number 4. Here it is. I think now we got the play that Brooklyn wants. Let's see. Watch this guy here. Oh, there he goes. I like it. Oh, he's wide open. Yeah! Moving on to somebody else. Okay. Ooh, that's Coach Red's favorite play. Number 5. This is to win the game, to get a T-shirt, or to get booed. It won't scar you for life, will it? It's just one time. You'll recover. Have a hard edge, right? Here we go. I like it. He's got a chance. He's got a chance. There's nobody on the back. He's got a oh! My God!
All right, we got number 6.
Number 6. Nobody on him. He got it. Oh!
That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that when we was up there at the spring showcase, getting to see some fans call plays. It was funny there on that first one. They had like numbered 1 through 6, and she picked a number, and somehow they got confused with the play call and ran the wrong play, so she got to have a second try, and then got made good on that second one when they ran the play that she initially wanted, which was funny there. So good clip there from, of course, a little bit of fan interaction, but let's share the recap of the game overall here. Another great job by the WVU media team, as always.
Happy game day.
As the run, be smart, remember it's your own teammate, play football. There we go, me. Let's go.
You're taking the play. If it doesn't work, we're all going to boo. Oh, I like that.
What's wrong?
Older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like the breeze, country roads, take me home to the place I love, West Virginia.
Thank you, bro.
I didn't see it. That's good.
All right, so there you have it. Another good job by the WVU media team. And hey, that's a special treat for you guys that are in here live, because those of you that are watching the playback, it'll probably be a little bit more silent because copyright with that music. Probably have to erase that out of there when it goes up on playback. But hey, another reason to be subscribed, so you know when we're going live and you can watch these things live and you get a little bit extra privileges, much like channel members like Trey get the extra privileges of, behind the scenes content, WVU football helmet badges, custom emojis. We'd love your support that way as well. If you're able to do so, that helps keep this mic recording and that camera rolling. You can do that by hitting the join button in the video description or the join button on the YouTube channel homepage. If you're someone that can't get enough WVU sports content, you're going to definitely appreciate that, especially once football season rolls around. You'll get player grades, snap counts, injury reports, depth chart updates, film reviews, game rewatch commentaries, and of course, monthly member hangouts, which we'll have one of those coming up this next weekend as well. But a lot of fun stuff there from the spring showcase, including fans getting to come on the field for the autograph signing after the game. That was always a good time. And I think despite not showing a lot, keeping it vanilla, we did see, some of the new players make some good plays. You saw Jalen Henderson with what would have been a touchdown run there if they were, not marking him down on the touch. We saw Max Brown get it in the end zone. You saw Ty Edwards get into the end zone. Cam Vaughn had some really good grabs. Jason Chambers with the interception. So a lot of good plays there for the newcomers, despite, sitting out some guys and it being pretty vanilla. Was still pretty entertaining, I thought, there on Saturday, and a great job by the WVU media team recapping that. But lastly, let's get to some of these comments here. Linda Skidmore, good to see you as always. She says Jasper Floyd. Did Jasper Floyd hit the portal? Let's see here if we can find. Indeed, he did. North Texas guard Jasper Floyd has officially entered the transfer portal as a grad transfer. 6'3" senior, averaged 9 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds per game. So keep an eye on that one, guys. That's now Brennan Lorient, Grant Newell, and Jasper Floyd from North Texas, all in the transfer portal. Would love to have all three of them follow Coach Hodge. We'll see what happens with Newell and Floyd now that they're both in there. Like I said on the previous stream when I talked basketball, I'm about 80% sure that Brennan Lorient will be a Mountaineer next year and could be the next transfer commit we hear from that we add to that transfer in list on the basketball side. But appreciate that. Heads up, Linda Skidmore. Jasper Floyd now in the portal as well. So another transfer portal guy on the basketball side to keep an eye on. Ranger Buck said, hard to believe the chips all fell in the right way to get Rich Bod back. Can't wait for the season, especially 9-13. Yeah, that's one of the things I talked about throughout the coaching search process when we were doing live streams, updating that as it was unfolding, and Rich Rod was continually one of the top guys there, and the guy that I was pulling for to get the job was, to me, man, you can't tell me that's not fate, poetic justice, whatever you want to call it, that of all the times that we could play Pitt, we play them this year in 2025 at home on the day 9-13, and that's Rich Rod's first year back. If you don't believe in fate, I don't know what else you can call that right there, especially since this is like the last time we're going to play him before the series goes on hiatus for a few years. All that adding up, that's got to be fate, right? That's crazy. Yes, Doug Wood, Dom Collins is in the portal. Unfortunately, that one pains me, being a Mercer County guy, and he's someone I had really high hopes for. He is in the portal, victim of this new NCAA roster limit thing that's going on, where a ton of players are going to have to transfer out here as West Virginia looks to, cut down the roster and then add more in the next portal window. If you popped in late, go back, check it out. There's 23 names that are in the portal. Unfortunately, Dom is one of them, Doug, which pained me to have to report on that. But I do wish him the best, and I think he's going to have a solid college career. Wherever he ends up, he's going to really show out with his great speed, as that's probably the case for a lot of these guys, and that's one thing we've talked about here throughout the spring, is lamenting these new roster limits, because we're going to lose a lot of good players that could have been contributors down the road, and he's definitely one of those, which you hate to see. But as more names continue to be added to that transfer out list, I'll come back for you guys with future transfer updates. You guys know, between updating the basketball roster, updating the football roster, transfer updates, all of that, I'll be live pretty much every day here, usually in the morning, sometimes late at night, but most of the times I try and get them done in the morning when I can. But appreciate you guys always tuning into these, whether you watch live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Those of you that watch on YouTube, whether live or in the playback, hit the thumbs up button before you head out. Help us with the algorithm. Be sure you're subscribed here so you can stay up to date on all these roster updates in the future. Be back with another transfer update here in short order, I'm sure, as more players make the decision to transfer out or are guided to make that decision. And, of course, we'll still have the basketball roster developing as well. So going to be an exciting time with roster changes coming for both sports, and be plenty for us to cover here on the CRW. And we'll keep you guys up to date with all that. If you didn't get a chance to chat here live, throw your thoughts in the comments. Always appreciate those interactions as well, as we try and grow the CRW community throughout Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, hope everyone has a great Tuesday. Appreciate you guys as always. I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.